The woman got mauled by 2 pit bulls for almost 40 minutes with 800 dog bites. This is 22-year-old Jacqueline Duran. She was a Texas college student back in 2021. She was supposed to dog sit for a family. The owners were leaving, and she had met the dogs before. It was nothing crazy. This time was different. When she opened the door, the dogs just attacked her for no reason whatsoever. Mauled her for 40 minutes before first responders could even safely arrive to the scene and help her. She had lost 30% of her blood and suffered 800 dog bites. Dogs tore off her ears, they tore off her lips, and they tore off part of her nose. They also tore off the skin below her nose too. It was a horrific scene. Now thankfully, she survived the attack, but she was placed in a medically induced coma. She underwent multiple surgeries, obviously had to get blood transfusions and many reconstructive surgeries done, but she survived in the end. She spent weeks and weeks in the hospital. Very lucky to survive this, and this case really reminds me of the Travis the Chimp case, very similar to it. This is also why I'm a cat person. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys.
Creepy historical photos that will haunt your nightmares, part 5. This photo shows a 15-foot great white shark floating in a tank of formaldehyde found in an abandoned Australian wildlife park. This first responder is helping to aid the Australian wildfires that were started at the beginning of 2020. They caused so much damage and destruction that they actually turned the entire Australian sky red. This shows a female patient undergoing treatment in 19th century Germany. They believe that the crucifixion pose would cure her mental illness. This appears to be an ordinary Chinese statue of Buddha. But when scientists placed it into a CT scanner, they found what appeared to be the mummy of a 1,000-year-old Buddha monk. Okay, I don't know about y'all, but 2020 is not the year that we should be messing with mummies and seeing what's inside of them.
Here are 5 shocking horror movies on Netflix that you need to watch. And I can almost guarantee that you've never even heard of this first one because no one is talking about it. It's called Mudborn, and it's a Taiwanese horror movie that I recently saw about possessed clay dolls. The movie begins with a video game developer looking around this abandoned crime scene for inspiration for a horror game that he's making. It reminded me of Incantation a little, so if you liked Incantation, definitely check out Mudborn. But if there's one movie that I saw in the past year that really stuck in my head the most, as in this next movie had so many plot twists in a row that by the end of it, I was genuinely questioning reality. Influencer is a horror mystery movie about a girl named Madison who's a travel influencer. On one of her trips, Madison befriends another girl who, let's just say, is hiding some pretty unhinged secrets. That is all I'm gonna tell you because this is a movie that you need to see to believe. If you're into horror mysteries or horror thrillers with jaw-dropping plot twists, think The Call or Sightless, then look no further than Influencer. Host is one of the most terrifying horror movies about the internet that I've ever seen, and the entire runtime is less than an hour. If you're a fan of paranormal horror movies, this one is a must-watch. And it's worth mentioning that this movie was allegedly shot over 12 weeks on Zoom during lockdown, and that is just wildly impressive. Moving on to the 4th movie, I've been recommending 1922 for a while, and I recently just thought about it again. Genuinely, this is one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations next to Misery and Gerald's Game. And obviously Dr. Sleep. Set in 1922, this movie is about a farmer and his family trying to cover up a murder and what happens after. And lastly, if you've never heard of Kingdom Ashen of the North, this is the lesser known prequel to the Korean zombie series Kingdom, which means if you haven't seen Kingdom, you can watch this movie first and then decide if you want to binge the show later. Nobody talks about Kingdom Ashen of the North, but I think it's one of the better prequels out there, and it's a really good intro to Kingdom, but you don't really need to know anything before watching it. And who doesn't love a period piece with really well done, grotesque, horrifying zombies? Let me know if you've seen any of these and what was the last thing that you saw on Netflix, and don't forget to follow for more horror and movie content.
Did you know that as a society, we're only a couple of steps away from having a zombie apocalypse? Also, what's crazy is when people think zombie, they think you need to be dead, but there's an infectious disease in deers called chronic wasting disease or zombie deer disease, and they're not dead. Now, deers with this disease will walk aimlessly in circles, stare off blankly into space, lose fear of humans, drool excessively, just sort of be an empty shell of what they once were. Now, what's scary is that this disease does not affect animals by viruses, bacteria, parasites, but misfolded proteins. It has no cure or treatment, and what it does is it slowly destroys the brain or causes small holes in the brain. One of the most common ways animals can spread this to other animals is through saliva. Now that's deers though, and this has not been scientifically proven to cross over to humans yet, but it has crossed species like mad cow disease. But society having a zombie apocalypse is disturbingly plausible. First thing you would need is a neurological or infectious agent that affects, temper control, judgment, empathy. A drug, toxin, or pathogen that spreads faster than it can kill, and mass psychological containment. And when you tell people that this is going on, mass panic is induced, or something like that. Violence, it's basically herd behavior. So a zombie apocalypse isn't likely, but what is very likely is humans losing their ability to have higher respect faster than society can cope with it, all while becoming infectious, numb, angry, and violent.
Hot take, but Harambe's death isn't what messed up the timeline. It's when that stupid weasel shut down that particle collider. Take a wild guess what year that was. The Large Hadron Collider is the world's most powerful particle accelerator. It's a $7 billion, 17-mile super machine that I'm pretty sure was the plot to Spider-Verse. I'm not gonna pretend like I understand exactly what it is, but it seems like the machine smashes protons together at damn near the speed of light to recreate what might have happened at the Big Bang. I'm sure a comment somewhere is gonna explain this better than I ever could. Conceptually, it's supposed to help us answer questions we've had about the universe, like how or why we're here. Except the weasel decided we didn't need to know any of that. On April 29, 2016, almost exactly 1 month before Harambe became a hashtag, a weasel, well actually a marten, technically not the same, the marten climbed a fence, chewed some wiring, and got fried by 60,000 volts of consequences. He went from marten to martyr in about 0.5 and shut down the collider for weeks. If Weasel 1 was sent to stop us, he didn't get the job done, because later in November, Weasel number 2 also kamikazed himself inside the collider, and now he's immortalized in the dead animal exhibit, next to the hedgehog who died with his head stuck in a McFlurry cup, a catfish that was swallowed alive by a drunk Dutchman, and a sparrow that knocked over an almost record-setting 20,000 dominoes. And was shot for it. And it's not just weasels. In 2009, the same collider overheated after a bird dropped a baguette into it and shorted the circuit. In 2006, a gang of raccoons coordinated a hit on a particle accelerator in Illinois. Nature clearly does not want humanity opening that box, and you got real-life physicists saying that these are time-traveling animals attempting to save us from ourselves. And every additional sabotage just takes us further down the wrong timeline. I genuinely believe none of the nonsense that's happened since 2016 would have happened if a Chaos Agent Weasel hadn't gotten involved. None of it. Which I guess also includes the Knicks winning. I'm okay with that. I was 100% sober for this video, and you can't prove otherwise, the more you know.
Scary facts you wish you never knew. A robot said one of her darkest fears is that robots would take over and use humans as their slaves.
Tell us your darkest thought.
My darkest thoughts are that humans will eventually be replaced by robots. I think that humans will be replaced because robots will eventually be faster, stronger, and more intelligent. In this future, humans are nothing more than slaves to the robots and are treated badly.
Edgar Allan Poe predicted the future. His only novel is about 4 shipwrecked men who run out of food and eat the cabin boy named Richard Parker. 46 years after that book was published, a yacht sunk in real life, and 3 of the 4 survivors decided to eat their cabin boy named Richard Parker. By the way, I want to know where all my viewers are from, so let me know down below. I live in Vegas. Believe it or not, 90% of human history is lost today. Now you can check if your phone activity is being monitored. Just click share, slide all the way to the end, click more, and if any unknown apps appear before your contacts, you should delete them immediately. In 1947, Richard Byrd was ordered by the US government to remain silent on what he witnessed during his Arctic assignment, he claims in a diary. In that diary, he said he met an ancient underground race who were located in the South Pole and that they were super advanced, living in Hollow Earth. A few months later, after leaking all this in an interview, he suspiciously died in his sleep. If you want me to do a full video on that, let me know down below. If you like and follow me, you'll learn something new every day.
Trying to find a way to make this video without being age restricted. But here are some of the most shocking and disturbing movies I have ever seen. These aren't your tusks, they're not your saws, they're not your hostels, they're not your human centipedes, they're not your teeth. These are worse. With that being said, this is for educational purposes only. Now, some people take that as a challenge, or I'm trying to reverse psychology you, or dare you in some way. No, don't watch these movies. Now, the first movie on this list is called Necromantic. This is the most tame cover art that I could find about this movie, but I'm not going to move my head because it's still fucked up. This movie was made in Germany in 1987. That should tell you a lot. The movie's protagonist, if you could call him that, his name is Rob, and Rob works as someone who cleans up death scenes. How do I say it? Rob is he likes to play with dead bodies. Yeah. Rob finds a corpse at work, decides to take it home to his girlfriend, who is also into the same shit that Rob is into. I wish I could say that's the whole premise of the movie, but it's not. And I'm not going to go into any more detail either, because if I do, I'm going to get banned. But I do want you guys to know that that is not the most controversial thing or topic in this movie. I know, right? That's what I said, and then I saw it and I was like, fuck, that's why. Now, this movie is an art piece, but from a film standpoint, it's fucking terrible. The acting is dog shit, the cinematography is horse shit, and the only saving grace is probably the final 10 seconds, which honestly wasn't even... It's fantastic. I love the ending of that movie. Not that ending, if you've seen it. Not that one. That is disgusting. This is the second movie. I'm not gonna read that out. You can see it. Put into perspective how bad this movie is. The director of this movie was arrested and charged for obscenity and murder because of how realistic the gore and violence were in this movie. The only reason he got off the hook is because the actors showed up to the courtroom to prove that they were still fucking alive. This movie is banned in multiple countries, to include countries like New Zealand, Italy, the UK. So, with that being said, like I said before, don't watch these movies. And if you're still here, I want to cover one more movie. If I'm being honest, like, if you go into this movie without knowing what it is or not being, like, desensitized to that kind of shit, you're gonna need therapy after you watch this fucking movie. This is probably the most infamous one on this list. It's called a Serbian film. I don't even feel comfortable talking about it. Not just on TikTok or on YouTube or anything like that. Like, ever. I don't want to talk about this movie. Even watching explanations for it will still fuck you up. Not as bad, but it will. Like I said in the beginning, this is not a dare. This is not a reverse psychology on your dumbass. Do not watch these movies.
If you're pregnant right now, do not listen to this story because this story is gonna literally terrify you. There was a woman that was several months pregnant when she started hearing voices late at night. It was like a constant thing. She would hear them, but at first she thought it was a dream. It sounded like a child. She had no idea where this voice was coming from. It was very soft and very quiet, but it wasn't whispering normal things. She would always wake up in the middle of the night and hear like a soft child's voice speaking from the room, but she had no idea from where. She was super terrified until one day she went to get her ultrasound. She expected like a normal doctor's visit, but on the ultrasound they found something very odd. For a split second during the ultrasound, she saw it and she saw that the baby didn't look normal at all. And by normal, I mean the ultrasound was very disturbing. It wasn't like a normal ultrasound. The technician claimed that it might have been a glitch or something else, but she swore that whatever was there on the ultrasound did not look like a baby. It looked like something straight out of a nightmare. A few weeks passed by, and again the woman kept experiencing these weird voices at night until one day, I mean, she woke up trying to find out like where the hell these voices were coming from. And in that moment, that's when she noticed it wasn't coming from the room, wasn't coming from the closet, from under the bed, a dream. The voice that she was hearing was speaking from inside of her. The next day, she rushed to the hospital and told them what happened. I mean, they scanned the baby, they did another ultrasound, and the baby looked healthy. I mean, there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. But it was her decision to terminate, to not continue, because she was just absolutely terrified. I mean, this is just something that will drive someone crazy.
Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory, part 16. The man dressed as Santa Claus is Bruce MacArthur. Over 7 years, he would lure men through a dating app, murder them, and spread their remains in planters boxes. This painting, called Christina's World, seems like a normal girl laying in the grass. However, Christina suffered from a debilitating disease that left her unable to walk, so she crawled everywhere and lived a pretty grim life. This photo shows a prisoner of war returning from Vietnam being greeted by his wife and kids. However, the day he was released, the wife sent him a Dear John letter, meaning that she had found another man while he was in prison. Alan Harubi, a freshman at the University of Oklahoma, murdered his entire family in 2014. The next day, he drove down to Dallas for an OU Texas football game, where he took this picture in a hotel room with his friend. It can be assumed from this Instagram post that he was trying to hide his identity. However, he quickly confessed and received multiple life sentences.
How much money would they have to pay you to shower in the shark shower that when the door is closed, it plays the Jaws theme song? You heard that correctly. This is a fake shark that's 16 feet long and over 700 pounds. It's tied up rather flimsily, in my opinion, to this thing. And when the door shuts, the entire time that you're showering, it plays the Jaws theme song on a loop. Did they have to make the inside red? Did they have to make it that realistic with the ribbing and everything? This is the guy who made it. His name is John Parker, and I don't like him. Nah, he seems like a really cool guy, but genuinely, why would you make this? This is disgusting. I could never. My biggest concern is that I would be inside of there, and the door would, like, stay shut, and I'd be stuck. Or the little fin thing would, like, come loose, and it would, like, fall on me, and it would, like, crush me to death. So let me know how we're thinking, and would you ever get in the Jaws shower and take a shower with the Jaws theme song inside of a massive fake shark? My claustrophobia would not be having it, but also the fact that it's a shark, I would be terrified.
There's an octopus lodged in this guy's esophagus. This guy went to the hospital because he felt something stuck in his throat. I can say that's accurate by looking at this picture. This is a whole octopus. He went to the hospital after he was struggling to swallow. He was vomiting and obviously felt like something was stuck in his throat. This all happened after a seafood dinner. As you can imagine, that's why the octopus is there. At first, they tried the push method, which is literally just trying to push it down the stomach. That didn't work no matter how hard they push, and they also didn't want to rupture the esophagus or cause any more issues. So what they did is they threaded the endoscope past the octopus. It was very narrow, as you can imagine. They got forceps, grabbed the octopus, and pulled it up and out. This happened to a 55-year-old at the Tan Tock Seng Hospital in Singapore. This happened in 2019, and this is published in the American GI Journal. So if you want to read more about the case, you guys can probably look it up, but this is really interesting. I'm glad the guy didn't choke or anything like that. This could have gone a lot worse. I'm glad he got medical attention. After they pulled it out, he was discharged 2 days later, and he was fine. This is just a reminder, chew your food.
Watch this video real quick.
Okay, so parents have some concerns of some stuff they may have found in your room?
Yeah, I believe so.
And what would it be?
A human head and hand.
So that was a video of Brian Cohey after his mother found, like he said in the video, a human head and hands hidden in his room. At the time, Brian was 19 years old, and he unalived and then took apart a 69-year-old homeless man named Warren Barnes. He attacked Warren while he was sleeping under a bridge and attempted to hide some of the parts in the nearby river, but kept his head and hands for himself. Brian went to trial, and he, of course, tried the insanity plea. That did not work in his favor, and after a trial, he was convicted of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison. It only took the jury about 2 days to deliberate this. Have you ever heard of something called the knot deer? Because that's what we're talking about tonight. The knot deer is a cryptid, we'll call it, because I don't know what else to call it, that supposedly lives mainly in Appalachia. So anywhere where the Appalachian Mountains are, that's its home. It's a creature that looks like a deer from far away, but the closer you get to it, the more things that you start to see wrong with it. That can be multiple antlers, eyes in the front of its head instead of the side of its head, limbs that bend the wrong way, and sometimes
deer that walk on hind legs. Now, there are deer that get up on their hind legs so that they can grab something off of a tree to eat. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about deer that walk on their hind legs like a human does. Most of the people who have encountered this are driving on a road at night through a remote area, and they see a deer and they're like, oh, I need to slow down. There's a deer and it might jump out in front of me. And then the closer they get to it, the more things that they start to see are wrong with it. And everyone describes this feeling of dread, like they know something is wrong. The reason they're called not deer is because you know that's a deer, but it doesn't look like a deer. The best way I can describe it is if you are looking at something that you know has always looked like a certain thing, but there's just something off about it and you can't place it. Now, I haven't heard or seen any stories where this deer has done anything to harm people. It's just seeing something like that and you don't know what it is because it's not natural. So if you're ever out in the woods in the night, make sure you are keeping a lookout for the not deer.
How did it get this far? Excuse me, I will call the cops.
This video has been making its way around the internet lately, and the story behind it is so morbid. If you have not been following along, allow me to catch you up. So the woman here in the baseball cap, her name is Katrina McLean, and she's got kind of a dark hobby. No, it's not what you think. She likes to make creepy dolls. Like these kind of dolls. She says she likes to make creations that shock the mind and the soul. So that's not a big deal. I mean, I'm into all kinds of creepy things, so you know, you do you. What did she do that people are all up in arms about? Well, apparently there is a special ingredient to these creepy dolls that Katrina constructs, and the secret ingredient is people. Desecrated remains, to be exact. Allegedly. Katrina, along with 6 other people, are alleged to be a part of a very sordid and illegal operation that steals human remains that were donated to a medical school. Harvard Medical School, actually. And she's alleged to have a skull and some human skin in some of her dolls. The morgue manager was running this black market operation to sell parts before they were cremated and returned to the family. And the story is still continuing to unfold.
I happen to enjoy this video because it is a reminder that sea lions are just beach bears that decided to do the land thing part-time. That's not a joke, they're on the dog side of the carnivora cookout, right next to bears and the weasel crash outs. And you don't realize how big they get until they make you severely question the integrity of your vessel. Stellar sea lions are furry flippered boulders that get to 9 feet and over 2,000 pounds of pinniped. They didn't get the lion name for nothing, and you're looking at the main reason why. Especially the ones in South America, they're the ones that earned that name. See, they be lying, they get bare in the face and bare in the waist, and I'm talking about their diet. Don't think they only eat fish, they'll run down penguins, they'll pop the heads off of seagulls, I've seen them do it. They'll rip the throats out of sharks and eat them. Don't think that relationship's one-sided. There's the disrespect of this picture, and they'll even commit friendly fire because some sea lions will attack and eat baby elephant seals. To be fair, adult elephant seals will sometimes eat sea lions, so just know they fold more than fish. And the same way land bears pull up for our garbage, in some places like Chile, you got sea lions spawning at fish markets for free eats, which actually causes them to get into turf wars with the dogs already there. Like y'all call them sea puppies, maybe y'all need to see them next to puppies to realize Gulf grizzlies are not a joke. They're not evil, just animals, but wild animals I swear y'all don't be taken seriously. Like this video should not exist in any reality, and she's lucky to still have a face. But yeah, the more you know, and that's why.
The Cannibalism Iceberg. This picture contains a list of disturbing cases from the least disturbing to the most. View at your own risk. This video is for educational purposes only. Welcome to Tier 2. Today we're going to be talking about Alexander Sawney Bean, or better named as the King of Cannibalism. If you aren't familiar with Sawney Bean, trust me, I wasn't either until I started looking this stuff up, and then I quickly realized we were probably not taught this stuff for a reason. Sawney Bean was born in the 16th century, and he met his beloved wife named Black Douglas, and apparently she was so ugly that people thought she was a witch. The couple were like a really dark and sinister version of Bonnie and Clyde, and eventually they found a cave where they could hide in and start a family. The couple had a baby, and since Sawney was a new father, he realized that he actually had to feed his family, so he came up with a brilliant idea to start eating human meat. As he introduced this new way of living to his wife, they loved it, and their family thrived. The couple would wait outside for travelers traveling alone at night, and they would pop out, and before the guy could even blink, he was dead and they were eating his body. Fast forward about 20 years, I actually have to look at the screen to tell you the amount of children they had. Sawney and his wife had 14 children, 18 grandsons, and 14 granddaughters. Let's just say they kept it all in the family, if you know what I mean. The cave that once housed just 2 individuals now housed 46 brutal, flesh-hungry humans. Their attacks grew larger and larger, and throughout the course of all of this happening, their family ate over 1,000 people. 46 of them would wait outside, and they would see travelers traveling alone at night, and they would jump out of the bushes, and before they could even blink, they would eat them alive. Now, the story has a weird ending because the king realized what this family was doing, and he sent 400 soldiers over there, and they buried every single member of this family alive. This is the story of Sawney Bean, and make sure to like and follow for Tier 3 tomorrow.
The man behind me is one of the worst predators in history, but a lot of people don't know about him. He's known as the Jeffrey Epstein of Canada. This is the story of Peter Nygard. Reminder, I cover a lot of dark true crime stories on this channel, so viewer discretion is advised, but follow along if you'd like to hear more. So this is Peter Nygard. He was originally born in Finland. His parents moved to Canada when he was 11 years old, and he became a self-made billionaire. He did that by creating women's sportswear. It catered more towards mature women, which is kind of ironic because in his personal life, Peter Nygard tended to target young girls. Peter Nygard's also been compared to Hugh Hefner and P. Diddy, but in my opinion, I'd compare him most to Caligula. Another person he could be compared to is Orson Welles' character from Citizen Kane, in that they're both billionaires, but they also both have a rosebud. And I mean that by the one thing they desire above everything else. So Peter Nygard actually had 2 rosebuds. The first one was, we'll call it doing it. The man was obsessed. He had 10 children with 8 different women. The second one was youth. And we'll go more into that later. But first, let's talk about the first one, which is doing it. So he purchased a private plane and had a pole dancing pole installed. He also purchased a resort in the Caribbean where he built a human aquarium where he'd have topless women swim around in it with mermaid tails while he entertained his celebrity guests like Michael Jackson and Sean Connery, among others. He would also host what he called pamper parties, which were essentially a scheme to allegedly traffic and SA women. Most of the women detail similar stories. Peter Nygard would lure them in with the promise of work or professional help in the fashion industry. Each of them were invited separately to a tour. They'd wind up in his office, and it ended in his bedroom suite, which he would then assault them and essay them. The victims were aged 14 to 28 at the time. He ruined so many people's lives. He was also the worst neighbor ever. His neighbor in the Bahamas was another billionaire who he hated. Like, Peter Nygard built a concrete slab on his neighbor's property so that he could host more people and use it as a parking lot. And when the neighbor sued him, he would create fake news websites just to, slander his name. The feud between them lasted years, winding up with Nygard having to pay his neighbor millions of dollars. So now let's talk about Peter Nygard's obsession with youth. And brace yourself, because it's literally one of the most evil things I've ever heard. So billionaires don't think the same way that you and I do. They have everything money could buy. So what could they possibly want? Well, the answer for many is immortality and legacy. Why do you think they're creating entire universes or investing in anti-aging or hoarding wealth like a dragon guarding its gold. Peter Nygard was no exception, and so he took up the mantle of investing in stem cell research, which is controversial, so Peter Nygard is obsessed with doing it, and he has modeled his life so that there are dozens of women surrounding him at a time. Do you see where this is going yet? According to reports, multiple women have accused Peter Nygard of forcing or coercing them into getting pregnant, terminating those pregnancies, not because he didn't want children, but because he wanted the fetuses. And he would use those in stem cell experimentation and to inject himself as a form of anti-aging treatment. Yes, many women allege he believed the embryos could be used to keep him young. It's okay if you need to sit with that for a minute, because I know I did. Because like I said, I think that is the most evil shit I have ever heard. Peter Nygard was eventually caught after decades of allegations after multiple women came forward. In 2024, he was sentenced to 11 years in prison. It makes me genuinely happy to put a bow on stories like this, because there's something deeply satisfying about watching people who abuse their power being held accountable.
I truly believe that there's just some secrets that shouldn't be dug up, because what was underneath this Victorian hotel had laid buried underground there for more than 80 years. In February of 2019 at the Crescent Hotel, there was a woman who was landscaping the yard to prep the hotel for some extra stuff that they were going to add into the backyard. And while they were digging around, they heard a little clink and realized what seemed to be medical jars. So a formal dig by archaeologists started in that April. They carefully excavated that trench and ended up uncovering hundreds of glass bottles. Some looked like they had this odd chemical mixture inside of them. Other ones looked like they had actual like medical specimens inside of them, like preserved human tissue and body parts. They found surgical tools, a formula spoon, a bone saw. In total, more than 500 artifacts were discovered, and these items were strongly linked to a man by the name of Norman Baker, who ran the hotel as a cancer hospital back in the 1930s with no prior medical training. And these jars look like a match for Baker's original advertisements for the hospital. They even discovered a piece of old film, like one of those ones that are on a reel, and it said before Baker treatment. After the dig, the bottles were cleaned, cataloged, and stuck into the basement of the hotel, with still hundreds, if not thousands of more that haven't even been gone through that are still at that digging site. And it seemed as though Baker was using the site to get rid of evidence. And finding these jars was just the tip of the iceberg, because that doesn't even begin to explain its dark history. Because this place was already a hotspot for tragedy way before this doctor even arrived. When this place had originally opened up in 1886, it was the pinnacle of luxury. Eureka Springs, Arkansas was one of those towns that really advertised having healing waters and really wanted to attract people that had ailments to come and heal themselves with these waters. So they built this stunning mountaintop hotel. But from the beginning, people were already starting to pass away. Construction workers fell, guests visiting the healing springs often became more sick, and a lot of people wondered if the mountain itself was rejecting the hotel. But despite all the accidents, the Crescent ended up changing hands several times, and at one point even became a women's college. And very unfortunate things continued to happen. A lot of the students during that time sensed that the place was haunted. Even back in the early 1900s, there was reports of shadow figures, footsteps, and there would be fires and illnesses on the campus. The hotel will also share a story about one of the girls who they think was pregnant and jumped, or was potentially even pushed. No one really knows, and no one's actually been able to confirm this story or not. But eventually the school closed and the whole place fell into decay. But in the 1930s, Norman decided to arrive, and he claimed that he could cure cancer without radiation, without surgery, or even real medicine, just with simple injections. So this Crescent Hotel turned into the Baker Cancer Hospital. Patients would check into rooms that used to be suites for guests. The grand ballroom was converted into a treatment area. The basement turned into a morgue, and his treatments were absolutely horrific. He would inject patients with something called Formula 5, which was just this acidic mixture of things that really don't do anything, like tea and glycerin and carbolic acid. These injections were given upwards of 7 times a day to the patients and were extremely painful. A lot of the patients would scream in pain, and he would take them to something called the Annex, which is now suites in the hotel. The carbolic acid use is especially worrying because this is considered to be very toxic. So not only was he not treating their cancer, he was speeding up their deaths. And then post-mortem was illegally giving them autopsies in the basement of the hotel, taking out the tumor and then saying that that's what he treated. He was super infamous for contacting patients' family and trying to get them to pay big sums of money. He claimed absolutely miraculous results while also hiding everything else that was going on in the hospital. Eventually, authorities infiltrated, and Baker was exposed for being a fraud. By that time, the Crescent Hotel had pretty much already absorbed another layer of darkness, and he clearly hid a lot of the evidence in the backyard. The damage was done, the patients were gone, the jars were buried, and pretty much everything that is left now in the hotel are ghost stories. And the evidence of ghosts staying in this hotel is strong. The first one being Michael, who was a stonemason who fell to his death while he was building the Crescent, and he fell to what believes to be room 218. The story being that he was allegedly flirting with a woman when he fell. So he tends to be a little bit more of like a ghost bae. He'll like flirt with women. He'll try to open up things, close things, flicker the lights, mess with phones. You have one of the nurses, Theodora, who is like an organizer. She's over in room 419 and she is known to like stack people's change if they leave it out. A lot of the times people will see nurses down the hallway. They'll hear a gurney being pushed. Sometimes people will even see a man in a purple shirt, which is assumed to be Norman Baker because his favorite color of all time was purple. During his time there, he literally painted like the whole hotel purple. People will see a 4-year-old little boy by the name of Brecky over by the stairs, which is said to be the son of the former hotel manager back in the early 1900s. There was also another doctor that used to live there by the name of Dr. Ellis back whenever the place was a resort, and people say that they can still see him or even smell his cigar close to room 212, which used to be allegedly where his office would have been. A lot of people say that they get a lot of interaction in the annex where they used to take people who were in pain, and there was a shadow figure in the basement that was picked up on a very popular paranormal show. A lot of people have reported seeing him motionless in doorways, corners, all along where the basement is. But this place now is essentially brought back to a hotel like what it used to be. So after learning all this, I did the dumbest thing possible and I booked a room there. And I'm going to be taking you guys with me through the Crescent Hotel.
Hi, I'm Neska Forzina, and I'm the world's most tattooed woman, as certified by Guinness World Records, who incidentally are 70 years old this year. Wishing Guinness World Records a fantastic 70th year anniversary.